Welcome everybody to this combined meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee of Authority. The meeting today, well, first and foremost, it's very important to remove jackets. So please take note. Oh, I think many of you may have already done that, so thank you for anticipating my comments. Today's meeting is broadcast live, so I encourage you to speak as best you can and might discuss. Today, the format is slightly different. We'll not be here until 12:30. Therefore, we have a slightly different running order to the normal situation. It's my intention that prior to 12:15, which point we would say 15-minute break, public questions will be taken at 7 as they are relevant to that item. We have a situation where the meeting will become inchoate at 11:45, and at this point, in 4 carry on as if there is no change. The only issue is that at that point, we cannot make formal recommendations. Only put in my timeline, we should only be to the last item. If councillors have questions that they're not able to ask, I would ask that they submit them to Will, and we will put them on to office in answers, and the answers will be shared by anybody here. For the context of the meeting, all papers will be taken as read, and the officers limit anything they need to highlight or that has substantially changed. Thank you. So, I now go to apologies for absence.
Thanks, Chair. So apologies this morning from Councillor Steve Watson and Councillor Alison Bacons. Also apologies from Councillor Martin Rowley, Councillor Dave Merritt, Councillor Tony Fisher and Councillor Andrew Williams.
I'm receiving the proposer second for the draft minutes of the previous meeting. Proposer, please. Thank you.
I just have a question about the minutes.
Okay.
At the last meeting, I questioned the lack of reference to my request for a copy of the letter the Mayor had sent to schools in terms of school safety. It isn't referenced in those minutes nor the minutes of the meeting before. There was agreement online that that would come. I still have not received a copy of the letter that is sent to all schools with regard to safety around school gates.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wall. Could you take the note of that?
Yeah, there is possible opportunity.
So, notwithstanding that we will make sure that correction is in place, could I have a seconder for the minutes, please? Yes, all in favour? Please indicate. Thank you very much. We now have the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. My partner, Councillor Stephen Fenton, is the Liberal Democrat Group representative on the City of York Enhanced Partnership for Buses Forum.
Thank you. Noted. Are there any other declarations of interest? Okay. Next item is public participation. We have previously indicated that public participation all relates to item 7 and they will appear at that stage. So I would now like to ask the officer to talk us through or to introduce the local transport delivery plan.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Isabel Nichols. I am the Transport Programme Manager at York, North Yorkshire Combined Authority. And this report is to introduce our progress on the production of our local transport delivery plan. Members will recall a recent item on the local transport plan, and I appreciate that we use a lot of the same words and letters for slightly different things. So to introduce that, this is a related document that will become the key mechanism for translating our emerging local transport plan into a practical funded programme of transport investment in the region. And what that looks like, and members will have seen, we emailed a copy of this round yesterday, is a spreadsheet which DFP supply us with, which asks us to set out our spending plans for the Consolidated Mayoral Transport Fund, setting out how that will deliver DFP's priority outcomes for different modes, the LTP vision objectives and mayoral local priorities. And that can be individual schemes where we are aware of them and they're at sufficient scale to be recorded at that level. But often it's wider categories of spend where, or programmes of spend where we're not going into detail. So the different options that, whether we are saying as a combined authority, this is what the funding will be spent on, or whether our delivery partners get some discretion within a wider package. To some extent, it's a living document because as time goes on, some schemes will be delivered, others will be developed, ready for delivery, and our strategy work brings new interventions forward. Similarly, the funding develops. This is a 4-year funding period, but we are already seeing DFT bringing out new lines of funding for some modes. There are other things such as the Structures Fund, which we will want our funding to work alongside. So it's a living document that will keep changing. And I think it's worth saying as well that this is the first year that we have had this settlement in this consolidated fashion, and we have had funding at this level, and with such discretion over how it's spent. And it's also a new process for DFP. They are working through how the devolution agenda works for them. So we're getting some different guidance as we go. So this will continue to change, I think, as we go. I think also just worth mentioning that as we bring out new strategy, for example, colleagues are going to talk about our BSIP as that comes forward, that again will. So as you'd have seen, our progress is that we submitted a local transport delivery plan to DFP in March. This is for their information and feedback, but not for their approval. And the information in that broadly reflected what was submitted to the Combined Authority Cabinet in March. But as members would have seen, that's very high level, big programmes of spend, which we are now working to break down into more meaningful programmes that we can identify and where appropriate projects. The corollary of that is, of course, that at some, we will start to understand the nature of those programmes and projects, the outcomes that they deliver, and start to prioritise based on our strategy, which are the ones which we want to see developed and brought forward. So our next deadline is that we need to submit a detailed local transport delivery plan for submission in October 2026. And to an extent, we are twin tracking between getting to that deadline with an appropriate level of detail for DFT and developing our slightly more sophisticated pipeline in the background with our delivery partners of what we need and want to see brought forward. At the moment, we are working closely with both North Yorkshire and City of York as our main delivery partners to identify the schemes and interventions which they would like to see brought forward. And we are using this to create a pipeline database where we can go through those things. That is ongoing work at the moment, and we're all working at pace to bring that forward. At the moment, I'm bringing you an update on where we are with that process rather than individual schemes. But I think before we get to the October deadline, we'll be able to come back to this committee and speak more about what specifically will be going in. I think the rest of the detail is probably covered in the report, and I don't want to work too much. But yeah, this is an update on where we are up to. and welcome any questions.
It's about this, or I believe is about understanding the process, but it's very important deadline. So over to councillors for questions.
Yeah, I have one. Thanks. Isabel, it's maybe I may be a bit premature with this question, and maybe should ask it under agenda item 6. But with a local transport delivery plan, and because of the rurality of North Yorkshire, when it comes to waiting for funds for schemes, etc., will there be, for want of a better word, an advantage for the rurality against the city transport schemes or road transport schemes?
So I think in the first instance, I think the thing to say here is we don't have that level of formula yet, and that is not how we intend to approach the funding. It will be outcomes focused for the whole region. So I don't see a scenario where we're sort of weighing rural against city in those terms. We'll be looking at the outcomes of the schemes, and particularly I think in the first 2 years of this plan, deliverability is going to be a really big priority for us in getting schemes which are currently in development into delivery. We will then be looking at where we want to put development funding, and that will be fed from our local transport plan. So the strategy and the priorities that you've seen there will translate into this. So I wouldn't expect this to be applied to particularly different, but we will be focusing on the outcomes which we can deliver against DFT and our own. Does that answer?
Yeah. You know, I said maybe I should have asked it under agenda item 6, Chair, but you've answered the question very well. Well, really, you know, as long as the rurality side of it, it's taken into consideration when it comes to waiting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just 2 short questions. One is the visibility of the road repairs investment. We're all very keen to see that on the ground. And secondly, in terms of the electric vehicle charging program, recognizing that there are many people who don't have a private driveway to install their own personal charging point, that project will cover the whole of the York and North Yorkshire area.
So in terms of the visibility, the highways maintenance program, yes, that will be a line on the local transport delivery plan. Because the combined authority isn't the local highways authority, we don't do the prioritisation and that is something which each local authority, you'll be aware, publishes on their website, you know, of their sort of schemes for the year and how they think that those will come forward. So the LTDP will be a published document. It will include that line, but in fact, what the local authorities publish will be the resourcing and that information. In terms of the electric vehicle charging, I think that our priority for this would stem from the local transport plan, and there is capital and revenue funding in DFT's settlement was for those. So I think what I've explained in terms of the prioritisation across the board would also apply here, and we'll be looking to our local authority partners to inform us on that and their progress to date and where they would want to see further investment.
Are there any questions at all? Well, I have one question for you as well. So my understanding and listening to the feedback that you've just given, just ask is that this is a process by which we see what the delivery ability is likely to be, but also see the balance across various projects, geographies, equally the allocation of the funds available. We'll also see visibility of work on the ground, although it would be referred to as a highways issue, that would be referred to the program. Is that a fair assessment of what the local delivery plan is going to give us?
Yes, I think that's a very fair assessment. Yeah, I think this will focus on looking forward to a pipeline, and it will be a tool by which you can see what has been delivered. And I think that where we are delivering, I'm sure we'll be reporting on that widely. But yes, this will enable you to see that process.
Thank you. Which case, Isabel, you are let off. What I will say is, no doubt you'll be working with Alan.
Yeah.
We'd like to do joined up thinking.
Oh no, I wouldn't have.
Thanks, Isabel.
I'd like now to move to transfer of plus powers. If presented by Matt Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Just got a very small number of comments to make the back of the written paper in the pack. So this piece of work that I'm leading on behalf of the Combined Authority is the transition of day-to-day responsibility for public bus services into the Combined Authority. I think we can characterise it. There's good progress made. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's a relatively limited amount of time to do that. So that's focusing our minds both within the Combined Authority and with colleagues from both councils that we're working very closely with. So just three comments really. One, the governance structures, the meetings, the detailed discussions, they're all in place and are up and running and operating as we want them to. So that's great. We've got that sort of core structure and governance in place. And the processes to enable the transition of bus services into the Combined Authority, that has been planned for. We have a detailed plan for that, and we have resources in place to make that happen. Obviously, I'm one of those resources, but we have other colleagues working within the team to make sure that happens. The final point is that there is, as I said, there is still timescales risks, I guess, associated with this, and we put everything in place to do that. Ultimately, there is a risk that at the end of this transition, we discover that there is insufficient funding to maintain bus services in their current form. That's something that's really focusing on the detailed work we're doing. We have some consultants who are assisting with that, assisting us with that at the moment, and are absolutely critical to the discussion. So, yeah, I think I'd like to summarise. Good start. We've got everything in place. Still a lot of work to do. That's my summary, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, councillors, questions, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quickie then, Mike, is when it's been drawn up, yeah, the governance board, etc., is equinumbered, presumably between North York, etc. Just going back to the question I asked Isabel, really, is that when it comes to the rurality, and they said that there could be, you know, you find you'd run out of brass or whatever. Yeah. Is there going to be any weighting to rurality services against City of York services, which I am not knocking one bit, but it's just a straightforward question. Can it be any weighting to rurality to get people into York or around North Yorkshire itself?
I think there's two parts to the answer to that question. Second part will probably get picked up by Matt and his, but I'm going to answer it on his behalf, if you don't mind. And hopefully he agrees with me. But the first part is that obviously there has been a lot of investment by North Yorkshire officers, North Yorkshire Council, into the bus network in recent years through the funding that's been the sort of ongoing funding that's been received from government is routed via the combined authority, and there was some previous money, Network North money that,
Right.
there was a one-off amount of funding that was ordered a couple of years ago. That spend is winding down now. So there is a lot of spend that's gone into rural buses. It's never enough, clearly, but it has been that level of spend. Then going forward, what we're looking to do is to continue that spend where it makes good sort of public use of public money sense to do that, and then to raise the bus service in urban and rural areas to a sort of a basic level of service. That is where I've led into Matt's presentation of item 7. So we can maybe pick that up. So.
And if I may, Chair, just following on then, like if the rural service proved to be popular, but the funding was getting tighter, I would presume, rightly or wrongly, that the mayor would make a bid for extra funding to prop that rather than it doing a good job to start with, then realise that's run out of brass, we'll cut it. And I acknowledge and accept, Mike, that village double-decker bus running in and out for 24 hours a day. No point buses running after 6, 7 o'clock at night if there's nobody using it. I acknowledge all that, but as long as the fact that the rural side, without knocking the City of York transport.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to risk speaking on behalf of the mayor, but it's something he said times before.
Good man.
That he regards, buses as broken in North Yorkshire, and he wants to fix it. And clearly, being able to fund the ability to make, talked about, is in the bus service. It's a critical part of that. We're pulling all the levers we can to do that, from government sources, from the levy that we'll raise on both local authorities, and all the other funding sources we can get our hands on to make that happen. There may still be a gap, and we'll have to work as best we can to close that gap and have those discussions. But that is our intention, to keep what we have at the minute and then to build on that. But as you yourself recognise, it all needs balance.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions for Mike at all?
I represent a city. When I first came to one of these meetings, I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit? It's very difficult to hear with the fan. Sorry. I represent a ward in the centre of York, where I was concerned that we only had one bus an hour, and then some people here had one bus a week.
Yeah.
It's a huge challenge. Are you increasing the frequency in rural areas? Is that the plan? And also, how likely do you think it is you'll run out?
This is the next item.
Oh, right, okay.
So because this man is just trying to make sure he's getting hours to be able to.
Okay, sorry.
Well, time question. I'm thinking already because he.
I told Matt I'd be throwing questions at him, but Jay, you're doing it for me. So thank you.
It's my role.
Some of my villagers be quite pleased with one bus a week.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we all had it, so we can choose. However, notwithstanding that, Mike, I have one question for you while what everybody else is just thinking. Is there anything else for you? You talked about governance, which is excellent. I think governance is something that is underrated and perhaps underperformed on in all governments, so not just on area. There's a project plan, but we didn't catch sight of it. We've got a monthly dashboard, but we haven't got and if you are got a precipice, hard edge, I think it would be nice to see.
Yeah.
And also, because there might be ways that people around this room, these councillors have got secrets out that it might be able to help you. So, but without full transparency, we don't know how we can help. So I would ask that, you know, if you perhaps provide that. I think one of the views is, this is a you and Matt, is whether you view transport as an economic driver, whether you view it as just getting reference. I'm just going to leave that one in the air for you. The last comment I've got is that the dashboard is critical, but there's a little bit of jargon there, and the ordinary person, so you know, might not know what a PID is. So if you could just sort of de-jargon it, that would be great. Yeah, so that's just my comments.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Yeah, so apologies, I should have referred to the dashboard in my presentation. Apologies for that. So what you see there, because of the nature of where the papers are put together, that's our dashboard about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And our colleague is who's been working with us for about 6-8 weeks now is still developing all the information and presentation of the information that goes with it. So apologies, that's slightly a slightly out of date dashboard, and probably, well, no, it's not probably, it has been developed for all the audiences that the dashboards are for. So I'm happy to, you know, maybe the next meeting of this group, if you wish to bring along a more detailed. I'll definitely de-jargon it for you. That's as well. So we share that. In terms of his transport driver in York and North Yorkshire, I think all the evidence suggests that it is.
Yeah.
Across all of our communities, big sports. So we definitely get that. That's why my remit is as part of this transition to make sure we absolutely keep what we have. So yes.
Questions for this gentleman? In which case, I will ask Will to introduce the public participation.
Thanks, Chair. So as you said earlier, we received 3 public questions or statements. Next item. So yeah, joint bus service improvement plan and partnership. So the first speaker should be joining us via Teams. Doreen McGill, here is okay.
Hi, thank you. You are breaking up a bit, so I've missed some of what you've said. I'm speaking on behalf of York Bus Forum, and the Bus Forum represents York bus users in general. Compared to many cities, the bus provision in York is poor. I've described it as woeful in the past, actually. After 7 p.m, whole swathes of the city have no services at all, and even main corridors are reduced to an hourly service. And the same is true on Sundays. I've heard, Matt said, in fact, that at some recent meetings, York services were held to be something of a gold standard. This is certainly not the case. It's therefore with some dismay that I read on page 24 of the reports, the agenda report pack, that there is an aim to standardise the bus officer for passengers across York and North Yorkshire, safeguarding commitments in CYC whilst improving passenger experience in NYC. The word safeguarding implies that the best York can hope for is that things don't get worse. This isn't good enough. At York Bus Forum, we've worked hard with all the agencies involved to improve bus provision in the city and have had some success, but there's still a long way to go, particularly at those times already mentioned. I can appreciate that many people in rural areas are far worse off than those of us in York, but I'm concerned that York should not suffer in this attempt to standardise the bus offer. If York service provision is held static while other parts of the authority get funding for improvements, this will indeed be retrogressive in real terms and completely unacceptable to those of us who live in the city. Apart from the sheer numbers of people who rely on the services in York, there's the issue of ancient street layouts struggling with congestion from the overabundance of private vehicles. This is something which is far less of a problem in most parts of Yorkshire and is one of the many reasons why the bus network, inadequate as it is, forms a vital role in keeping the city of York moving. I would therefore urge far more ambition from the combined authority when looking at what is possible for York, as well as for North Yorkshire as a whole, moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very erudite observations. I'd now just like to call on Matt to give a response, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Doreen, for the contribution you've made and to the York Bus Forum, because myself and Graham Thomas, who's the other bus service manager of the Combined Authority, attended an online meeting last week to introduce ourselves. And I do genuinely look forward to working to improve the bus services in the city of York and across North Yorkshire with the forum. In terms of the point that was specifically raised regarding page 24, section 5.2, this was in relation to the development of the joint enhanced partnership, the benefits of doing that rather than a limit of our ambitions for bus services in York. The draft bus service improvement plan, which is set out in Appendix 1 and part of this discussion, does detail a number of commitments that would expand upon the current level of service within York, including relating to, I think, the really valid points that Doreen has raised in terms of evening and Sunday services. And in fact, the CA does already provide funding through the LA bus grant to do so. And we have made a commitment in the BSIP to look to enhance this where we can. Similarly, the existing York Enhanced Partnership, I know the York Bus Forum are heavily engaged with, will set out a number of commitments and ambitions that have not yet been delivered. And I think what this perhaps quite poorly worded element of the report was seeking to say was that we need to safeguard those additional commitments that have already been made but not yet delivered and incorporate them into any new EP that we develop for the whole of North Yorkshire, alongside improving the experience and the bus service offer for those who live in wider North Yorkshire and particularly rural communities. So hopefully that helps to provide some reassurance, but happy to expand on any specific points if that would be useful.
Thank you very much, Matt. Doreen, I believe you are allowed to ask as long as it keeps on what Matt said to you.
Yeah, can I, as I say, you keep breaking up, so I'm not quite sure what you just said, but certainly, Matt, you have given me some reassurance, but I still feel, especially listening to your meeting in general, that, you know, we do need to speak up for York, and that is what I intend to do at every opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay, next public speaker is Roger French. Mr. French. Without your statement, please.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
You can, yeah.
Good. I'd encourage you to be more ambitious and innovative in the current documents and maximise the optimal use of resources. From my background, I'm a Celebian by birth, a resident of York and a member of the York Bus Forum and Selby Rail User Group, but I submit this personally. As Doreen has pointed out, page 7 of the summary, 5.2, talks about safeguarding commitments in York. Yet the first line of page 4 of the York and North Yorkshire Bus Service Improvement Plan says, this bus service improvement plan sets out how local bus services will be improved across York and North Yorkshire. Improvement should be the ambition. Indeed, pages 9 and 10 demonstrate that services are rated amber in parts of York. The frequency of the number 4 bus service in Acomb has reduced by half compared to pre-COVID. In the Selby area, quite how the Osgerby, Cliff, Hemmingbrough area can be classified as amber rather than red when it has no regular bus service save one bus each way on Selby Market Day is beyond me. On the wider local transport front, there are clear opportunities in Sherburn in Elmet, for example, to provide better rail services more quickly to new destinations by adopting practices already used on a number of routes. This could be done rather than going for the gold standard £12 million rebuild the platform option, which is being used by Transpennine Express and Network Rail as an excuse to do nothing and would release capital resources to be used elsewhere in the area. I have copied officers from the Combined Authority and the local rep on the North Yorkshire Council with a number of questions to TPE that have never been answered. Interestingly, the local MP's office commented that the questions were perfectly valid. Transpennine Express did come up with a spurious excuse of grandfather rights that relate to different circumstances. I could give more examples of resistance to innovative thinking in rail operator companies in relation to stopping services at Ursgelf and the Selby Station upgrade project if time allowed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for attention to detail and your what I'll call candid observations. Matt, would you please provide a response to Roger?
Yeah, so again, thank you to Roger for his thoughts, both on the bus service improvement plan and EP work and opportunities in relation to better rail services. I think I've covered the point in the comment regarding page 24, 5.2. But again, thank you for pointing it out. And it was not in any way intended to limit the ambition that we as officers of the Combined Authority have for bus services in York. In terms of the BSIP itself, I appreciate this is a significant and important document. In presenting this to members and within the report itself, we highlight the challenge in developing this in such a short timeline. But we're pleased to have the opportunity to bring it to overview and scrutiny ahead of the decision, something that I know is not always possible to do. But what the document does set out, I think, and Mike touched on this previously, is the real challenge that exists to improve bus services across the region, both within York and wider North Yorkshire. As mentioned in the previous response I gave, we're happy to work with the York Bus Forum and other key stakeholders to look at opportunities to improve the network, and we will commit to doing that. And specifically, I know Roger just then raised some points regarding the service forum, evening services, in and around the Selby area. With regards to Sherburn in Elmet, I'm obviously bus services manager, but I have reached out to my rail colleague who's provided some short background that I'd be happy to provide. States that work's been ongoing by Network Rail to understand what needs to change to allow the Castleford service to stop at Sherburn in Elmet, and it did identify 10 to 12 million pounds of works, which Roger's mentioned, and that work is to extend the existing platforms and to raise them as well to make the station accessible. Following some consultation with Transpennine, the Member of Parliament and Network Rail, it was felt that this was the only way to proceed at this time, rather than looking at partial fixes such as a shorter platform or I think they're called Harrington humps, and they're just like a raised section that the train's able to meet on the platform. Partly because that wouldn't provide guaranteed accessibility for users on the service. Work is ongoing to identify funding for the schemes. It's clear there's significant employment and housing growth in the area, which again Roger's mentioned, and we're working closely with partners to do it. Hopefully that last part, I'm happy to link Roger and the committee up with the relevant officer in case there's any kind of further questions on that specific point.
Thank you, Matt. Roger, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I'm just really disappointed with the attitude about the, and I know it's not down to Matt. I go to Newcastle regularly on Transpennine Express into platform 11, which is on a curve. The facilities are far worse than at Sherburn in Elmet. So what the job's worth in Network Rail and Transpennine want to do is spend £12 million doing a super duper new system rather than adapting the situation. If this carries on, frankly, you might as well give up on Great British Railways, but that's all I'll say. I'm happy to argue it out anywhere, anytime.
Thank you, Roger. We won't be arguing it out anymore here today, but we have a speaker, but Will is going to be the proxy for this person.
That's right, Chair. So Mrs Allison is unable to attend, but I'll read it out on her behalf. So she says, I've been a resident of Wensleydale in 1975, run a manufacturing business at the market time. For some years, have been entirely dependent on local public transport. Public transport is not in itself a statutory duty, as it is for North Yorkshire. However, the National Park's two statutory duties, recreation and the additional requirement to further the economy, are all affected by the way in which responsibility for public transport is taken or is not taken, and the ability and continuing willingness of the sector to shoulder some of the load. In terms of the passenger needs, getting not always the same as getting around one. Some national parks, such as the Lake District and the Peak District, have much better reputations for their public transport than the Yorkshire Dales. Indeed, without the volunteer Dales bus services and integrated like bus in Wensleydale and Swaledale, non-motorists in this area would be very, very seriously disadvantaged. Can this be acceptable in a national park that is a national resource provided for all? Is that what John Dower envisaged when he wrote the report that established the foundations of legislation for established national parks? Simon Norton, a world-class mathematician and transport, when he wrote in 2019, transport is vehemently a human rights issue. People can't function properly in the society we have built. We have come to tolerate a degree of discrimination far beyond what in recent years has increasingly come to be seen as unacceptable for, say, minorities. The right of access to education, employment, leisure services, and so on is enshrined in the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, but there is no complementary right to transport or travel to and from such facilities. Where might non-motorists want to go? Dave Warwicker of Transport 2000 said so perceptively at the start of the millennium, please, non-motorists want to go where motorists go, and at the same time and on the same days.
Over to you, Pat.
Thank you. So again, thanks to Ruth for feedback on access to public transport in the Yorkshire Dales National Park. It's worth saying since 2010, the National Park authorities have been unable to direct bus services due to funding cuts, which are motivated the great volunteers we see who set up and support Dales Bus community. The CA supports Dales Bus with funding to assist in maintaining and developing their network, recognising the value of these services and providing access to key locations in the national park during periods. So, NYC also provides funding for all-year bus contracts in Wensleydale and Swaledale, which are delivered by the Little White Bus, which is a transport organisation that we do great work with. Providing bus services in rural areas can be challenging. I think it's something that's been acknowledged already, given the levels of meaning that services usually require additional public funding to cover their operating costs. And there's often actually a limited supply of bus operators and capacity in the local area to deliver these services. To better understand how we tackle these challenges, the Combined Authority was recently awarded in November last year £564,000 from the Department for Transport to undertake a bus franchising pilot study to look at how we can better deliver improved rural and coastal services across Yorkshire. As part of this study, we identified the Yorkshire Dales as one of 5 areas we'll be assessing. We've engaged with key stakeholders, including Dales Bus and Little White Bus, as part of this project. I think it's due to come to this committee in September as well for an update on that work. So members will be able to hear more detail then. But yeah, we're looking to speak to stakeholders as part of the project, and we'll have already conducted some stakeholder engagement in that area to understand users' experience of the bus.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'd just like to say,
Before we move on, I've got written.
thank you. Just before we finish this point, I'd like speakers on behalf of myself and hopefully the committee. Thank you for your trust. I'd like to thank the speakers for their interest and their insightful questions. We need more people to speak up, particularly there's only one from North Yorkshire and two from York, especially around accessibility, which is a big issue for me. It might be said that there's too much about the challenge of bringing forward a bus service and not enough about solutions. So I thank you again for your comments, and we may have discussed them to Sen. And with that, I will start. Matt to introduce it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And sorry, you're probably all sick like this by now, but I'll keep it brief. This report provides an update on two closely related pieces of work. The new Joint Bus Service Improvement Plan, or BSIP, you will have heard it referred as, which covers the period 2027 to 2032, and the proposal to develop a new single enhanced partnership area. Currently, there are two, one covering York and one covering. The report asks members to note progress on both areas and specifically in relation to the BSIP, providing. Like I said in response to the previous question, we're pleased to be bringing this to the scrutiny prior to CA decision for member input, despite the tight deadlines that we're working to. It's important to stress that an up-to-date and compliant BSIP is a key requirement for our funding agreement with the DfT, with up-to-date being currently defined as anything after 2024. It's critical requirement funding through the mayoral transport fund, which Isabel talked about earlier. North Yorkshire does currently have a compliant plan. It was last updated in 2024, but the City of York does not. And so we take the opportunity to produce a joint plan for the whole combined authority area. It's important, I think it is noted in the report, that the DfT has indicated that it wants to see substantial progress on this work by 6, and failure to demonstrate that progress could result in an in-year funding cut, an in-year funding being withheld, which obviously creates a significant risk to the service delivery. But to address this, the CA commissioned ARUP earlier in the year to support on the development of a new BSIP. Through engagement with stakeholders, operators and partners, work was undertaken to establish a shared vision for services across York and North Yorkshire, and that's detailed within the report. There's also a number of delivery objectives which are set out, and they're focused on things like improving reliability and punctuality, strengthening connectivity, supporting our rural communities, maintaining affordable and simple fares, improving access, accelerating decarbonisation, and delivering a better integrated passenger. Targets and delivery will be monitored annually, and there'll be an opportunity to flex and alter the report depending on what funding is made available in future years. I think it was raised earlier, but we'll continue to make the case to DfT for more funding for provision of bus services within. So that's the BSIP element. I'll just briefly now turn to the second part of the report, which covers the enhanced partnership. And this is essentially where the BSIP sets out the plan for delivery. The enhanced partnership is the mechanism via which we do that delivery. The report outlines the opportunity to move from the two existing enhanced partnerships, one for York, one for North Yorkshire, to a single partnership covering the whole combined authority geography. There are advantages to this approach. It's been pointed out. It would align the partnership geography with the new BSIP, which is really important. It creates the opportunity for a more consistent passenger offer across the region. To reiterate, that isn't about one area staying still, but the other catching up. It's more about how we do things like public transport information, integrated ticketing, allowing that kind of cross-boundary travel that perhaps doesn't have and better integration. And it'd also be our kind of like negotiating forum with operators. So it's really important that we have one kind of opportunity to do that rather than having two different And there are also additional minimum standards that the DFT is expected to any enhanced partnership by April 2027, by March, sorry, 2027. So this will be a good do that. The paper does set out some challenges in delivering that joint PP. It is a statutory process, and there are significant consultation and legal requirements there. We've had some mapping done by a consultant set out in Appendix 2, and that is just a very high level. There is lots of detail behind that, which suggests a minimum programme of around 28 weeks. It's fair to say officers at both CYC and NYC have expressed some concerns around that timetable, particularly given Christmas happening and the pre-election period in starting in March 2027. It creates a few conflicts because the work wouldn't really, well, the work would start in advance of, but the decision to move to a joint partnership wouldn't be taken until the 11th of September Combined Authority Cabinet meeting. For that reason, we're working with DFT to explore what the most practical approach is to making sure we get those minimum standards in. And it may be that we build them into the existing enhanced partnerships alongside developing a joint enhanced partnership, which would be on a slightly longer timeline. But we're like I say, we're in conversation with DFT to understand what their view on that would be and how we can remain compliant with their, and I think that's pretty much all I was going to say on it. So happy to take any questions.
Very much. You were going to get them whether you were happy or not. I'm going to start with Councillor. But if people could indicate, I'll then take questions.
I've actually now got a couple of questions for the yeah, okay. So the objectives don't include journey times, which is a big issue. If bus journeys are to be undertaken, motorists get money to provide as priority. Bus journey times have increased massively over the decades on the same.
I think that's a very fair point. I think we would normally view that under punctuality and reliability, ensuring that. But yeah, if there's, we can take another look at that if there's not an explicit. I think there are some schemes that are taking place, as you'll be aware, within the City of York to improve journey times currently.
I think it needs to be in the thing. And if I could, the use of single county-wide targets of bus stop facilities should generally work in York is simply inappropriate. It's a framework. Certainly won't help us to get the target 14% increase bus usage proposed, and not recognising the different needs and requirements to or ask for funding from the government. So again, I think that needs.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just checking where that is. I think it's the targets on real-time information at stops. But yeah, I can take a look at that back to you, because I think we do have sitting behind that individual targets for York and North Yorkshire. It's just the headline target. Yeah, I'll come back with a.
So, or Pastor and Packham, is that right? Oh, sorry. What Councillor Watson?
I'm just seeing how I.
Right. Thank you. I thought the report was refreshing in containing the expressions of concerns about the timetable. And I do think from reading this, it's rather rushed. There's significant surgery on bus services, which are very much loved by residents in the city. And my fear is that the timetable is driving all of this bureaucracy, rather than connectivity, reliability. The most frequent comment is from people going for GP appointments: I have to catch the bus 2 hours before I need it to be certain to arrive on time. And I think that's one of the things that it's the comment that reverberates in my mind whenever bus services come up. So I'd like to know what has been done with DFT to say, hold on, let's get this right. In terms of the BC money, there is money in the existing system that has not yet been spent. And the concern is what happens to that, because that hasn't yet delivered the improvements that had been inherited by the current administration. And this hasn't been to City of York Council's place scrutiny. I don't know whether it's been equivalent in North Yorkshire, but I think that needs to be reviewed at both local authorities to go through the fine detail. And a very specific point in the draft document in 4.6, enable inclusive access for all. There's no reference to dial and ride, which is an ongoing issue within the city, and also bus routes that cross the boundaries. So the 412 goes through a number of different authorities, and certainly I'd like more detail on the young person's fare reduction, on the principle of, if you get people used to using buses at an early age, then they'll continue to use them later on, and it needs to be very much an encouragement. Sorry, it's been a few questions there.
No, that's absolutely fine. Excuse me. So on the point around the timetable, we are working very closely with DFT on this, and they've had a draft of our BSIP and our enhanced partnership plan to get their feedback on it. I think we're absolutely trying to get this right, and that's why we're doing sessions like this to ensure that we get as possible ahead of it going to CA combined authority. But there is that existing challenge around DFT funding. That is because there isn't a live BSIP currently for York, even though there is BSIP funds, like you mentioned. What we have done though is incorporated what was in the York BSIP as it and in the North Yorkshire BSIP to try and make sure we're not missing any commitments that have been made previously, that there is still something allocated for. So they hopefully roll on. Obviously, that will be subject to kind of decisions taken by members, but that's the intention. Appreciate your point around the place scrutiny board. It has been to the Transport Advisory Board, which is made up of the cabinet member for local authorities. So they've had the chance to kind of and obviously we've brought it to overview and scrutiny as well. And there's probably a bit of a timing issue to try and get it to the place scrutiny board, but we can take that away and have a look at it. And certainly, as I've mentioned, whilst we need to get something written down and delivered for the DFT's time, there is an opportunity for us to be reviewing this annually as things change, not least our funding position. So we can make sure there's ongoing engagement in the document as part of that. Inclusive access for all. I didn't start with this, but I am 4 weeks into the role, so I'm not certain on the dial-a-ride history. But I will pick up with colleagues in City of York and see if there's a reason that's been on that. And bus routes that cross the 8 boundaries, and myself and Graham, we've been thinking about that a lot because we are dependent on a lot of routes that are operated from outside of our boundary. So not just within York itself, in places like Skipton or Harrogate, we're dependent on geography. And so there is an action or a commitment in there to set up kind of joint working forums with each combined authorities that we neighbour, where there are combined authorities or local authorities where that's appropriate, to ensure that we can keep as consistent as much as we can, and we have the power to services that don't necessarily have as much control. and the young person's fare reduction, we do have some figures on the numbers of people who've taken that up, and I think it was 3 or 4 million journeys, 3 million journeys, like before now. I think it seems to be a decent scheme, and I think we've got a commitment as far as we can fund it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Matt. Just going on, following on from Councillor Waller's questions there. Do you think, Matt, because we have a new Prime Minister, his ambition regarding bus transport, maybe, and I agree with Councillor Waller that maybe slightly rushes this report, but with the thinking of the new Prime Minister, you may find yourself back to square one if you aren't careful. And do you think it's likely to bring some money in what he's trying to do with bus transport?
So we, the way that the document has been constructed is that we have firm commitments in there which are, we think, deliverable within our funding envelope, which is to the current spending review for revenue, which is to 28-29. Obviously, if that changes, we then have a list of what we've called ambitions that we could put to DFT and say, these are further things we want to do beyond what we have money for, essentially. So I think there's probably more, there's more detailed work need to be done on the ambitions, but there's certainly stuff within the document and the work that obviously Isabel's doing on the capital element of it, to put in packages of work to the DFT and saying, if there were more money available, this is what we'd want to do with it.
That's with respect to what isn't in the report, that's in your back pocket that you could bring out.
Yeah, exactly. So we probably need to do a bit more kind of work to flesh them out, but there are ambitions in there that, we could kind of package up opportunities that should more funding be made available, which I think we'd all welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now ask your question.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Yes, you mentioned something which was interesting to me, which was the joint working forums with adjacent authorities. One thing that always strikes me about reports of the combined authority is we spend a lot of time talking about rurality and forget areas that maybe don't fall into either of those categories. My real concern is that there are large areas in the south that are very dependent on commuting in both directions, to and from West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, and for example, paragraph 4.3 of the report, and you do recognise the fact that there is an issue with cross-boundary, but then you go on to mention where it's a problem, and it's Scarborough and East Yorkshire, the Dales and Skipton, Keighley and Ilkley, Harrogate and York into Leeds, and Richmond and Northallerton into the Tees. There's a massive area south of, which I notice is the southern boundary of the map further on in which is what was Selby District. Very unfortunately, in 1974, for whatever reason, the local government commission decided to put it into North Yorkshire, not West Yorkshire, but we're still. But we are much more closely related to those two authorities in terms of transport. If you look at the link between us and North Yorkshire, for example, it's a tiny. So I'd like to know a bit more about how we're going to work the other authorities and what you see as potential improvements to make sure that, in particular, where you've got places like my division, which is where we've got Roger French has just mentioned the railway station there, but it's the same with bus services. We need a situation where public transport recognises that a lot of people go either from our area into the adjacent accommodations or come the other way. And I wonder if you give some indication as to how we're moving forward with that in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, and sorry for missing out Selby specifically there. No ill will.
We're used to it.
But I will say that we recently actually had an engagement session in Selby, the rural pilots work, which we're coming to present on in September, where we discussed a lot of the issues that bus users have, particularly in terms of links to West Yorkshire. I think also the lack of service to Doncaster. I think that came off some years ago. So there are definitely opportunities we can do services. The challenge we have with working with some of our kind of combined authority partners is different stages of their rural of their bus franchising journey, and so it's about kind of responding and working with them to ensure that things don't stop at the boundary, because that's not how people travel. Geography is much wider than that, like you say. So we will continue to do contact from I think it's the stakeholder manager at West Yorkshire Combined Authority the other day. So we're looking to kind of get that up and running, and certainly South Yorkshire as well.
So a really simple example of the difference is that we're about a mile and a half West Yorkshire boundary. Just inside that boundary is Micklefield. Much better rail services, much smaller settlement services, much better bus services.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Backham. I think that border issue is issues. I now have Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. This might be a bit parochial.
It's all right, I've just done.
I volunteer at Thirst Tourist Information, and we frequently get a lot of visitors there from around the world and around England who've used public transport to get to Thirst, and then want to get up to the Sutton Bank Information Centre and then proceed to Helmsley. Of course, we've got that huge problem that buses can't go up Sutton Bank. A simple solution in my mind would be if there was a small minibus shuttle service that went up Sutton Bank, and the 128, which is operated by East Yorkshire Services, could be extended to go to the visitor centre to meet up with said minibus. That would prevent that hole in the system and an easy solution.
Thank you.
You don't have to respond. Take it away and think about it.
So Matt, just gets I now have Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Since you've invited me to sing for my summer, could I bang the drum for cross-city bus services? Some parts of York are well served with resident services. Other parts of York, you have from upspeak. There's a definite lacuna. But one thing I think we identify is the lack of cross-city service. So, for instance, if you're 3 or 4 miles out of the centre and you want to travel a comparatively short distance in a sideways route, find yourself having to travel into the city centre and I can think, for instance, of a retirement complex on the northern side of and in fact, actually, the nearest doctors are in Huntington, which are just a short distance away. But in fact, if you want to get there by bus, you're going pretty well into the town and out on the number 5 bus. So the value of those cross services probably can have the potential to fill other gaps as well. They don't have to be huge double-decker buses. Sure, small vehicles could meet the demand. Is something which would enhance the facilities of public transport for York immeasurably.
Thank you. That's the response. I'd ask you to just note that, because I think same to Harrogate and other urban centres across North Yorkshire, which is I would now want to just offer Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you. This is my first meeting and it's a very interesting committee. You answered the question I'm going to ask you within 2 sections. On page 35, which councillor about encouraging more young people to use our buses for £1. When it first came in, as far as I understood, was for a certain time of holidays, which I think it's excellent. Which, as you said, on page 46, which concerns them again, as councillor has just said, might be a bit parochial. On page 46, it does not include school transport. Now, the area I represent in Scarborough is one of the most deprived. And whereas my young people don't qualify, they've got 2 children in that household, it costs them £8 a day for the child to get to school. So mathematics, £40 a week, right? Now, if they were paying £1, that would be a big saving. And I just wondered if it was, as Councillor Baston referred to, we've got a new Prime Minister, any future in that maybe coming in, because it might save a reduction in all that transport. I've got very few children in my area that qualify for free schools, unless they're on benefits. For the normal working family, and I could give you quote cost them their child. I know a lot of benefit that go from Scarborough to Lady Lovelace, and they've said what a big saving that is, £1 there, £1 back. And so if if I'm not speaking to Chairman, I'm interested. And the other thing is, we do speak in this report, Park and Ride extending it. And I think on the coast, I think that's something that's really certain. And I know York very well. I was born there. You have difficult streets. We also have difficult streets in Scarborough where you couldn't get a double-decker bus or a single-decker bus. And our Park and Ride generally finishes about 5:30, which is really no good to anybody. If you work in the town or work in the coastal community and you finish at 7 o'clock in the night, you've got to get a taxi or a walk, because there's no way for you to park if you brought your own car. Because where I live in my area alone, with 30 spaces, which one year we issued 30,000 scratch. So you equate that to me. Whereas if we could encourage more people to use the Park and Ride, they would reduce the congestion. York's Park and Ride, I think, is amazing. I don't know what time you actually finish it right now, but I think Scarborough's leaves a lot to be desired, because people now have to rush. The father probably goes and brings the car back into town, congests our residence areas, because we did try to charge, which I objected to and won, but otherwise we just have nowhere for anybody. So that is not a joined up thing in my mind. Do something about that, Matt. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So Matt, to that, we're not yet.
No, not Prime Minister. In this report, Chairman, I think there is a leeway to do something about it, especially right, because we are causing congestion. I know in some cases it is the coast. We subsidise, I know that, but it would be worth subsidising it for that extra time in order for people, in York as well, for people to get home.
So Councillor Jefferson, you mistake me. All I'm very concerned about fares in town. It's great that it's £2 for me to go from Harrogate.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about my area into the centre of Harrogate, which will cost them £2. So I fully take on board your Park and Ride.
That's all the time, you know that. So we had a fatality on the railway this morning, so if I can't get back, if I get back to York, I get bus to York to Scarborough, and I use it all the time, public transport. I do drive, but I use it all the time. Which just points in this report, to me, will save money in the long run, because you not meaning the Prime Minister. I've just raised that because it's somebody mentioned the Prime Minister. Go back to pound fares with him, but I think for young people, the pound is a good thing all year round.
Surprise some of the things came out, because we're here to help.
Yeah.
This is what I noted, that we want levelling up, not down. The number one issue as I chair Scrutiny of Transport for the North is I have to catch the bus 2 hours before the devil will be in the detail. You've got companies. You need to think about bus service as a way of life. Not how will I get my of how will I get myself to work today. And within that context, the economic development goes beyond board rates. It's potentially a political impact, but that is real. I think I'm hearing there's a need that all public transport needs to be integrated. So, you know, sort of buses don't leave the train at the station, but there was a request. We also city, or one of the things that might help that is many. So you might need to think of it in fares. Fares, because it can be very expensive to others in local areas. Half a ride, yes, half a ride for the bus, but it could be park and ride. I have a couple of other comments that I'd like to add, but that's a summary.
If I could just say that we still have severe reservations about the time.
So I'll get to that, but I'll add that in now. But there is a timeline issue. We appreciate that you. So one of the things I'd made here is that we very much welcome this report. We think it's a step forward. We do appreciate that you're under pressure. And I would be concerned that that aren't sufficiently resourced. But that's for you to argue. It's just an observation that you've got an awful lot of work. If I look at I think it's paragraph 4.2 in the paper, I think that the ambition here is, and I know you haven't got with the funding envelopes, but I think the ambition here is not great enough. And the reason I say that is when I became a councillor in 2017, I asked a simple question. Why is the amount of money spent on transport? And transport is a very nebulous, expansive thing. But why is the spend on transport 1/5 per head in North Yorkshire compared to England? And when I did the calculation again, just last year, it's not moved. So I think that maybe councillors may have a duty to put pressure on that. Equally, we have to have a duty for some what I would call oven-ready thoughts. So I am so I am concerned about your lack of ambition, not because it's necessarily poor lack of ambition, but the pressures that are put upon you. But I would encourage you to say that there are opportunities out there. I also fear for the amount of time, the amount of working about challenges rather than opportunities. And I think if we spent as much time on opportunities as challenges, we'd probably solve a lot of them. I'm also very concerned that we make accessibility a key cornerstone. And if you refer to any of the Transport for the North have done, they have an amazing paper on accessibility, and I think it needs to be taken into account. You have a very harsh deadline of August 2026, which you have my sympathy, but you must ask for help if you need it. For example, there was a very in 2017, 2018, 2019, two reports that cost a lot of money to do with transport, and there's a lot of good ideas there that could be replicated in towns. So, to summarise, I feel that you want to make sure you're sufficiently resourced to deliver the ambition. Very much for the hard work, and you will know that I have more questions. Thank you. Thank you. I now need to point out that the meeting is no longer quorate, which means that we're effectively in informed session. And I'd like to move Unless my colleague tells me any different, I'd like to now move to item 9 as item 8 is on the agenda. Are we okay?
Yeah, officers want to stay, you want to, or you? Really, that's the useful check.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk through the draft performance management framework. Right.
Jeez.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
That's a few health and safety laws. So
So yeah, to look at the draft performance management framework and the proposed corporate dashboard KPIs that are associated with that. So firstly, just to talk briefly about why we need a performance management framework. As the combined authority has grown, so too has the need for a consistent organisational approach to performance management to ensure that we're delivering on our stated priorities. We have a number of governance arrangements already in place. This framework brings them together into a single coherent approach. It provides a line of sight from the corporate plan through direct delivery plans and programmes into performance reporting, risk, finance and assurance to really bring in those different strands together. Ultimately, the aim is to move beyond simply reporting on activity and towards understanding better whether we're delivering the outcomes that we're intending to enable us to learn lessons and improve our activity forward. So in terms of what's changed and why this now, timing is right now because of a number of important organisational developments that have taken place over the last year. We've got the emerging corporate plan, still in draft at the moment, but giving us some clarity and direction there. We've got directorate service delivery plans developed and are getting stronger, strengthened risk management arrangements, increased finance and analytical capacity, and strengthening delivery teams who are better placed to analyse the outcomes of their activities. So with all these developments, the Performance Board is able to become established as a forum to review the elements and understand better the organisation is performing strongly and where improvements may still be required. The Performance Board is still at a developmental stage. We're looking at how best to function, what the best information to focus on is. It's not yet at business as usual stage, so ideal timing to establish the performance management framework and to bring the proposal to overview and scrutiny for comment. The framework builds on these developments rather than creating new processes, so it's very much direction of travel for the organisation and the performance management framework and performance board strengthening and building on synergies that are existing at the moment. So just to talk more specifically about the corporate dashboards and other KPIs that we're considering, these sit as an appendix to the performance management framework. So we've developed a suite of strategic performance measures that we're calling corporate dashboard. Corporate dashboard is split into two sections. One of those focuses on what we're calling state of the region. So it gives an overview to help inform decisions. Now, these are areas where we necessarily expect to have a huge direct impact, but the information will be critical in the organisation, helping inform the decisions in terms of how best where best to focus our efforts. And the second section focuses on aligning with the corporate plan priorities, particularly areas where we want to have a direct impact. So under that section, selected measures that are meaningful to members, supported by reliable data, and are within the combined authority's direct sphere of influence. Rather than trying to measure everything, the corporate dashboard will focus on a small number of headline indicators aligned to each corporate plan priority. In terms of the process, we've reviewed other mature combined authorities' performance data in terms of combined authorities who've had a longer life than ourselves. We've got an economic framework that we refer to, particularly in KPIs. That gives us clear parameters and clear areas of focus. We have had discussions with our own programme leads, with heads of service, with directors, to tease out the most impactful indicators. And the strategy team has also been heavily engaged on the state of the region. So it's very much been a corporate approach to developing these the framework and the KPIs that sit underneath it. For that reason, a small number of KPIs remain under refinement to ensure definitions, baselines and targets are robust. We've adopted a maturity approach, so you'll see in the corporate dashboard there's detail around some of the KPIs will be relevant immediately, some of them we've said will be relevant 2 to 3 years, and others might take 4 to 5 years. So the intention here is to ensure we're focusing on the strongest possible indicator, but being realistic, because we're not in a position to adopt those at this stage. In some cases, we need to strengthen our systems. An example would be net zero. We've got an immediate aim to articulate the people and businesses supported through our combined authority funded net zero programmes. And then the developmental aim is to look at carbon savings and carbon emissions. Now, we do that to some degree now, but we don't feel like it's a robust enough approach that we could publish those figures, if you like. And just in terms of the subject of refinement, we have looked particularly at the transport KPIs on the corporate dashboard. Like I say, it's very much a new document that's emerging. I think the transport elements were so they've been adjusted. I think we've updated within the corporate dashboard itself. We've introduced a focus on number of road casualties and on public transport, walking and cycling connectivity. Those two have been introduced in place of the previous KPIs, which were around residents within a 30-minute walk of the nearest railway station, which we thought would be a limited impact on. So again, I mean, partly because this is obviously work in progress, and partly because, to be honest with you, there was that annual leave element in terms of having conversations to make sure that we were getting the most up-to-date information we possibly could.
Thank you very much, Alan. I think you should assume that we've all read the paper. We'll probably be asking you what's on the bottom of page 5, but don't worry about that. So I ask Councillor, do you have questions for Alan at all? Wow, you've stunned us. It's a brilliant paper, and it is a very good paper, and it's very encouraging. So thank you. So I will make some comments because performance is something that's in my sort of other life as a management consultant. Not as a house husband or anything like that, I'm afraid, Councillor Baker. So one of the things is that you can't measure what you don't. You can't manage what you don't measure. So that's my big issue. So it's about having the right measures. Not only that, is it has to be measures that somebody can act on, and I'm quite concerned that some of these measures don't look like people can act on, or there might be something behind it that trickles down. That's the piece where, if you've got a team of council officers and you're all doing your best and you've all got resource, you need something that's saying, I need to move that widget over here or change that piece over there. And if the KPIs are too generic, then you're not helping. So what we have to do, so for my mind, your KPIs have to help all the council, all the council officers. That's what they're there for. Yes, it has to give transparency to us so that we can say, why are men only living till 80, 90 or whatever it is, or whatever metric we pick out, or we've only done this many, only getting this many conversions of first journeys from modal transport shift, etc. So that would be my observation. And there is something also about consistent performance as well, which you pointed out. I appreciate that they are emerging, and I think we all appreciate that, you're a very young combined authority. So there's lots to go. But one of my questions for you would be, who have you looked at as best practice? Which other combined authorities?
We've looked at West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, we've looked at Cambridge and Peterborough. So those are probably the three that we thought were most, in terms of how their information was presented. We're part of a network group with all the combined authorities as well on launch and evaluation. So we're able to talk through with that group. But those are probably what align most.
So if I were to say to you, apart from the fact that I am from Bolton before the mayor arrives and he'll complain that side of the Pennines, he always does. Greater Manchester is the only combined authority that actually has economic growth at the moment. So would they not be worth looking at?
Yeah. They say we've done a wide sweep in terms of the information that's available, and then our strategy team have gone through that and looked at our economic framework to try and make sure the alignment between what's widely available. There's also some good resources through the association, so we've used some of their best practice as well, but no, absolutely.
This has to work for us. That's what I'm saying. So look, thank you very much. Are there any other questions from?
I just had some comments to follow on from what Alan.
Can I just ask if there's any more councillor comments first? Are there any comments from councillors? No, in which case, please, sorry, what's your name? I can't see your card, so tell me what. Sorry, Mike. Please carry on, Mike. Mike, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Please carry on there.
So there's just 2 points there. Firstly, in the context of Alan's answer around which combined authorities are being engaged for, and I acknowledge your comment here on Greater Manchester. We also balance Greater Manchester's success with the fact that they are a beast apart from a lot of other combined authorities in terms of their journey, the long established and the much bigger. So not our constitution around theirs. We look at them quite a lot, but it's difficult to move at the level of scale that they can, which is why Alan's looked at some of the more regional Cambridge and Peterborough in terms of an exemplar that's about journey similar to ours and actually it's challenges where they've looked very closely at this and it hits government piece. And in terms of, just for me, the other point of context you raised about the KPIs that we've set and how we do it, it's important to note that these aren't the only KPIs. We'll sort of programme level, those programmes will have their specific outputs and outcomes. But what we needed to do was identify something that we could look at an organisational level, and more importantly, going back to your, how do we track those? I think it mentions in Alan's framework that he's developed that our core starting document is the POD, so our document that is effectively our internal business case that says what we're going to do. And the whole purpose of that process is to make sure that we're setting programme level outputs and outcomes that might not map one-to-one to one of the organisational level outputs, but sit as themes. So in terms of your question around how do officers know what to do, they need to set up their business cases knowing that they aim towards the themes in our core and the KPIs at an organisational level that Alan said.
So I get all that, but what I would say to you is that people do what you inspect, not what you expect. And my experience of local government and national civil service is that we tend to expect people to do the right thing. So that's why I think this. But if you don't give guidance and you don't set the right KPIs, there can be a challenge on. We're all here, and I'm particularly here because I want you to be ultra successful. I want so these comments are made in the spirit of trying to develop a better product to support your the development of these things. So it's not meant as anything other than support. If there are no other questions for Alan, and I'd like to thank you for the paper, and I'd like to thank you for the fact that you brought it to us. So that's really great. So thank you very much. I wish you well with the continued mapping journey. I'd now like to move, if my colleagues on the left and right allow me, to move to item 11. On the basis I'd like to break at 12:15 to let you all have the mayor comes in. You okay? Good. So, Will, I think your programme 11 really, aren't you?
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of the programme of work, obviously there's a few bits that have come out today in terms of extra detail and things that members have asked for. Take those away. Since the agenda was published last week, there has been an extra item for the September meeting, which we've got in York. So that will be added to, that's around the strategic strategy for a sustainable future. So members have seen that previously, but it's final check in September. That's in York, as I say. And then, as I say, there's obviously a few actions that have come out of the meeting today, which we'll pick up outside. That was just the programme of work, if anyone's got any questions on that. Just some other kind of administrative points. We have spoken before about the local transport plan and potentially setting up some subgroups. I've been in discussions with officers around that. And I know, Chair, we've discussed it in terms of the setup of these subgroups. Yeah, I wanted to set those up sooner rather than later. So for your alertness, I'll send some correspondence after the meeting in terms of how we set those up. I think the initial plan was to have a place-based to the LTP groups. So, for example, kind of urban, coastal, and rural, or a mix of those. But as I say, I'll communicate more details on that as soon as I've got them.
Yeah, and just picking up on that particular proposal, I haven't been able to speak to the chair about it, but my suggestion is that we perhaps run 3 1-hour lunchtime online sessions so that it can perhaps fit with people's working days much better. So we have still to develop this, but this matter of urgency. So I don't know if there's any comments on from the councillors on whether 3 1-hour sessions would work. Okay, well, look, we'll process and send anything out, send proposals out to you guys. There's no urgent business as far as I'm aware. No, correct. Okay, that's fantastic. I'm going to tell you that the next meeting is scheduled. Is this correct? Tuesday the 15th of September, and it's in York. And I'd like to take opportunity just to close the meeting for 15 minutes and then reopen when the mayor arrives. The intention is that the whole meeting will close around 1:30. That's okay. Thank you very much.
I understand.
Thank you very much for waiting for us while we took a brief break. So welcome back to the combined overview and scrutiny committee meeting. We're now at the point of the agenda where we are able to question our mayor. So I'm going to ask that the mayor do a brief introduction and then to Councillor you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everyone. Yes, as the Chair says, we sent through a written report, so I'll take that as this. I just wanted to highlight particularly funding and investment around the 3 mail development zones that we've created in York, Scarborough and Selby, which is a really duty to get. Really, it's more about joining up approach to those 3 opportunities. There is a monetary value that comes with it as well, but really it's about making sure that all partners and all stars are aligned around those 3 opportunities. And it also just needs to be the MDZs, the only 3 MDZs we'll ever do, but they were just the obvious ones to get started with. Obviously, people will know the York Central site, I assume, very well. The opportunities around Selby, and knows that area, there's quite a lot of development opportunity, particularly Olympia Park and a few challenging areas there, and Scarborough as well. And working with both local authorities, they were deemed to be the most obvious to move on quickly. Already quite a bit of private investment and developer excitement about that, particularly on the Scarborough one. The team who run UK, one of the biggest in property events of the year that's held in Leeds. The team there are wanting to do something similar. Really good opportunity to as well. And then the business trade and innovation piece as well, just highlighting that. Again, just building off the work. Reef, the exporting grant has been a really great success. Again, so that's supporting businesses in the region to get exporting, which what we found is there's a lot of need and excitement around exporting businesses. Many in the region have just never done it, don't have the capacity, don't understand the challenges that need to be navigated. So we've been able to support a lot of businesses on that, which has been really successful. And then building on that, that leads into the Northern Mayor's trade delegation to India in October, which is going to be a great opportunity for North Yorkshire on the further map and create the strong links campus that they have opened over there. We also welcome the 3 millionth £1 bus journey, that £1 fare cap. I welcome the announcement of last week, was it, or this week? There's been so many great announcements by this Labour government. I'm sure we'll be agree on that. Of the £2 cap coming back, so obviously that's got a real positive impact on our. Well, I do just want to state that I send my apologies for not being able to attend the last meeting. I was otherwise pulled down to, which happens at a quite frequent basis and last minute. Committee will be aware that I do voluntarily make the decision to attend every one of the overview scrutiny meetings, particularly after the way some of my officers spoke one of the first times. And I think I'm the only mayor who actually does make that effort to come to every single one. The Prime Minister has added significant emphasis this last week as well to devolution. We were called over to number 10 the North last week, this week, where we were part of the National Economic Council, really emphasising the importance of mayors in devolved areas, and particularly the big focus now, which you'd have seen hopefully this week, 14 to 16, technical education. There's been a big press from the Prime Minister, as he previously was the Mayor, post 14, post 16 education. Now it's been have been wanting to see, so that's a great move in the right direction as well. And there's also notes on the report that I've sent around as well from Local Growth Fund, the Men's Mental Health High Street Fund, the Natural Access to Banking Fund, which I think will be a really great success for our region as well, and the imperative to bring cash basically back on the high street. So I'll take that and I'll take any questions, Chair, if that's how you want to.
Please. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, it is noted and we thank you for that. I'm now to questions. So Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you for letting me go first. We had a fatality on the rail today, so I've got to get back to Scarborough. But as long as I get to York, I can get the bus.
Yeah.
Really welcome what you're doing for Scarborough with the high street funding. As you know, because I've met you before,
Yeah.
I'm president of the Chamber of Trade and Commerce, and it's high street. I asked this question earlier, so I'm going to repeat it myself. Councillor on the other side from York mentioned it about the 0 to 19 £1 fare. It used to be just over the summer months. I know it's limited, but my concern is could it get people have to pay for their bus fare to get to school? Because in my division in Scarborough, which is quite deprived, if the 2 children, it's costing them a week, unless they're on benefits, they have that money to pay. Said some travel to Pickering, to Lady Lumley's, and they benefit from the fact that it's £1 each way. And the other thing I asked for, consideration to extend our park and ride on the coast, which will sort of alleviate congestion in the town and prevent Daddy going and getting the car at town, so to spend the night on the coast as well. And that would benefit everybody, I think.
Pleasure. So on the £1 yeah, we're always exploring about how much more we can roll that out. People. The fact is, on transport and revenue, we are really poorly funded as a region, quite frankly. Our press with government is to really see how we can free up more funding to bring into revenue to run the buses. As I say, it's great. We've had 3 million of journeys now, but it's costing us around about £2.5 to £3 million a year to like that. So it's a huge cost as a percent in terms of revenue. So we always are exploring how we can expand that. For example, if there's an option around carers and care leavers, for example. So we always are exploring. So it's always on our mind. I can really guarantee on that how we can spend that further, because it is a huge cost, and I just don't think we'd have the finances to fund it. On the park and ride, yeah, the park and ride has been picked up by the transport team. I hope earlier on. The great success of York Park and Ride is classed as one of the best park and rides there is in the country. I'm always amazed that Scarborough isn't better or used more. I think part of the signage is terrible, frankly. You don't even see it. People always talk about dueling the A64. That's all well and good, but all that traffic goes into the same area, into the same straight past that park and ride. And I don't think you would know that park and ride existed. It's not open all year round, is that correct as well, Councillor?
No.
It's very seasonal.
Ghost buses.
Yeah, so we are, I know with the transport team, exploring how we can expand that park and ride from there, and also in Harrogate, which I know is quite so one opportunity around Harrogate could be as well, which I think has been banded around before. Council has, you might know about that as well. But it's been presented as a business case before, but I think basically just sort of tuned out.
Subsidised, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
It would help.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we should consider.
Absolutely, I'm saying it is, because we want to improve the accessibility to in and out of Scarborough all year round, and obviously with the investment that's going in there and the MDZ to really drive that investment. The transport does need to improve. I know we've done work in time, but the road network is still how you could get people not obviously all going all the way into Scarborough at that first point using the park and ride would be critical. So it is ongoing with the team, yeah, but again, it is a North Yorkshire Council asset as well, so it's working with them to press on with that.
Thank you both. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor, there's a couple of questions I would like to put to you. First and foremost, everybody will be aware of the tremendous overspend on the York Gateway project. And I was wondering, has combined authority money been pulled to part finance the overspend?
We have invested some into the York Gateway project to be able to support. I think there's an overspend, is it? It comes into now, but obviously a lot of that stems back from many years ago with quite poor oversight of the project from the first start. But we have put into there, into the York Station. What I'm slightly not conscious about, but we need to get the station right, first and foremost, because it's not fit, won't be fit for purpose with the York Central online as well, and with York now being a major part of the NPR, the Northern Powerhouse Rail. So yes, there is an overspend that stems back from many years. There has been money from the Combined Authority gone in that station is delivered, particularly the accessibility frontage part is done. We're working with Network Rail as well about basically the internals of the station as well, particularly on the bridge and the overpass, because again, might be in the best position possible, but if the middle bit isn't, then we need to work on that as well.
Supplementary on that point is, what is the amount of combined authority investment in the project?
I don't have that figure to hand. I'll be able to get that to you. I think it's a couple of £1 million, but I'm not sure the exact detail yet. Yeah.
The second point was, could you update me of the position as you currently understand in respect to that?
Yeah, so we actually had a meeting on that quite recently. We met with DFT quite recently. All suggestions then that it's still delivery within the same time. Officers of my team are regularly in touch with Network Rail and DFT and ministers to make sure that that is the case. The planning element is a matter for rail, and we are always in touch with them to make sure that anything that we can support that to make sure it's still staying the time we are doing.
Have you any indication when you think the application will come to the public?
That'll be down to Network Rail for them. We might want to put in a planning application. There'll be a question for them, yeah.
Thank you very much. Next is.
Thank you, Chair. And Mayor, just continuing on York Central, because this comes after a number of years of work on opening up that site. In terms of Homes England, ensuring that the housing that will be built on the site is available to families in the local area, rather than it being a commercial venture purely. It's in what work is going on to ensure that it's an organic expansion of the current city, rather than being a development that could be anywhere. So it's ensuring that it benefits residents within the city, so they can see that the work that was done 10 years ago is actually bearing fruit, in terms of it's going to take some time. It's going to a number of decades to fully develop out, but it's ensuring that the right work is done now. And is there any threat from the Manchester model being monopolising the northernness of redistributing government outside of Whitehall?
I think on the York Central, I think I've always been, and I know many people in York have been very conscious about making sure York Central is not an add-on, part of the city and works for the people of the city. Only a few weeks ago, I took the previous Prime Minister around the site, and the emphasis on that we all made there about very, as you say, organic, to use your term, and very much part of the city. It's very much that I'm very conscious about. I know York council and leaders are as well. I think the great positive about the site, bear in mind that currently we've got no stake in the site financially, is the fact that a lot of the road and infrastructure and public realm has already started to go in. So cyclists around the city council, you'll probably appreciate it for the fact you can already move through the site, and I think that makes it more accessible to people. They can see the development happening literally before their eyes. So that's, it's also why getting the housing need, demand of the site is really, really important. So we're addressing the need very much to have 40% affordability on this. Currently, I think it's at 20% at 2.5. We are really pushing hard with Homes England and all the invested parties on it to get that up higher. It sits part of the strategic plan. We have Homes England, York Central. We are looking at what the financial cost of that would be, because we'd love to get the affordability rate of it up, so it is more in keeping with the people of York and North Yorkshire. We're also very conscious about the innovation zone and the GPA building, making sure again that's not, I suppose, helicoptering jobs from outside, and again creating jobs very much for the people of North Yorkshire, which again I think we've got a really good opportunity around that. And that's why having the MDZ and having a board that's really designed around those key elements of the GPA, the housing, the innovation zone, which is going to be a major part of the MDZ, to make sure that those key elements like that are really moving forward. It's not just being lost, in your words, Councillor, a development that could be anywhere. I think we're probably maybe biased as residents of the city, but you don't want that's it's a special place, and its heritage and its history and its all that really is a major part of the city and its success. And you could develop a brownfield site on the edge of a Manchester or Birmingham. You know, when you put spades in the ground in York, it is a very different proposition. So it's making sure it's really right, which I think if you see the work the developer is making sure that it does feed the need of one city.
Thank you very much. Councillor Back.
Obviously, the one I'm going to mention to you is Sherburn.
Yeah.
Sherburn, as you know, has grown massively in the last 10 years. It's got a state which is 10,000 people. A railway station which can only take northern trains. Something about that and bus transport to Sherburn to maintain growth on the industrial estate. And they can't get stuff. And the only way they can get there is by car. So can I ask that, firstly, and let me know currently what the real position is on whether or not we're going to get a station. And so wants to push the issue of Sherburn Station along, because it is critically important both to residents and to people of Sherburn.
Equally as frustrated with you as Sherburn as well. So just in the wider Sherburn and the whole region, the MDZ hopefully bring a lot of those pictures all together as well, because of what the whole site is like in terms of development, housing, the business part, the business opportunity. So that's a big tick for that area. The last I heard on the station, the layman's terms like me, thing to do, the station just needs to be extended to be able to take the longer trains, but it's not as simple as that. The cost that we got last time was about 3 times bigger than what we initially were told only about a year, 18 months ago. Because due to inflation, because of everything at the minute, but it seems a ridiculous increase in cost. So officers in my are chasing that, stand by that cost has gone up so much, because it would have been a quick, easy win, which we know in transport is very rarely the case, but something that should have been fairly simple and straightforward to do, and everyone seemed to really buy into it needing to be done, to all of a sudden being a cost originally. Obviously, then it goes into a real work. Actually, can we afford this now? So I'll get the latest engagement we've had on it, but the cost had really spiraled. We last had engagement with Network Rail and operators around it, because we're like you, we want the longer trains to stop, because it's and what that could do to open up the whole area would be huge. And it's extending and raising the platform slightly. It shouldn't be the cost that's coming back to us currently. It's just not affordable if it comes at that cost.
There is a major accessibility issue as well, of course, because half of the residents.
Yeah.
If you're over about 65, unless you're me,
Yeah. No, it's not. I followed it up again because the last engagement we had with them was costs in not a very long period of time as well. So we just need to bottom out what is the opportunity we can actually do within a finance.
Much. And now we just have Councillor Burton and then myself.
Okay, so thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor, for today. It's great to read your report and all the positive things that you're doing in York and North Yorkshire. It's really encouraging, and thank you also from my ward for the Bishy Road. Well, I know that went down really well, but anyway. What I wanted to ask you about, and today is very pertinent with the announcements about training for young people. As a former teacher as well, I know you know, not everybody is cut out for academia, and that's very exciting. And I thought about Trailblazer programme as well, and how linked that they will be able to take lessons from what you've been doing, because I think it's gone very well. There's another thing to do with that. How is this Trailblazer thing going? Also, have you managed to find people with the skills to teach the young people, because they're all or older people? That was a problem at one point, and it's yeah.
It is, yes. So thank you for your one word. So you'll remember when we've got the first round of Trailblazer funding that we got last year, we only had about 6 weeks to roll it out. And we were also told at the time that we couldn't use the 2 local authorities to deliver a lot of that work as well. So we really were hamstrung from the very start. Back again, so use the 2 local authorities because they are incredibly well placed. So it has been successful. We've got a second round of it now. We're taking a lot of learnings from the first round. We've also need to extend the reporting back as well, because in the plan, deliver it and roll it down all in a 12-month period. And anyone who's ever delivered a programme of that size and that scale with that much money will know that that's just not realistic. And now we know it can carry on. You don't want to roll it down. Positives and be able to really expedite and kick those on and take learn from things that haven't worked. There's always going to be failure, and we just have to accept that. The piece around the educators is a commonality across every single piece we work on, not just the Trailblazer, be it on the construction skills, almost on every element of skills element. We have seen that as a real problem to how we encourage people back into education who may have seemingly left education, how we maintain the quality of staff there, but also we are asking, you could say things like construction skills, for example, we have to be a well-paid workforce and come back and go work in a higher education facility, which is not cut out for everyone as well. So it's a big piece that we are asking how we can support the training providers and the training providers to actually support their workforce to be able to retain and train up them as well, because that's where we've had a big focus. Have as many people as you want coming forward to go on training. Don't have the trainers, you just get a huge bottleneck there. So it has been a big focus of all our skills. What we're hoping now as well, again, you'd be aware, councillor, that there comes a lot of limitations. Yeah, and a big frustration we've had is across all the skills funding we get, so not just the £10 million Trailblazer, but the other pots. It's making sure how people speak to one another rather than them being separate entities. So what a bit more working behind is a bit more experience, I suppose, is how we can make all the different pots speak to one another rather than this pot doing that work in isolation, this pot over here work in isolation, how they can better speak to one another, have more of a conveyor belt of people being supported through the process, because there'll be people early stages who could be supported by Trailblazer to get them to the point where they are able to go looking for work. But then we need to give them work experience, for example. So it's how those 2 pots, that's a big piece of work that we're working on now, just to make sure that they all speak together. But like you are, really encouraged by the focus on down the university route and a bigger focus on post-16 education, because again, a lot of time you may be aware that we have responsibility around careers post-16 and skills post-19, and there's that gap where career, but then we're not supporting on skills and vice versa. The opportunity to support people from a younger age, because again, in this region, we have a challenge with retaining people that come to our education systems and they leave to go elsewhere, then they're not coming back. If we can support people from a younger age, say 16, we can get them on maybe pathways that are more aligned with Yorkshire and actually retain them here, which is our. I'll get you a report on where the first round of Trailblazer is, so you can see that and take and learn from there. And hopefully now we've got a bit more time to actually develop it.
Thank you. Well, it's just my questions now. All right. They're nicely prepared in order to have, hopefully. So earlier on, we would get BSIP and various other bits and pieces and transport in general. So one of the things I pointed out was in 2017, and it's still the case today, that the spend per head for what I'll notionally call transport is a fifth of what it is in the southeast of England. And I think with the new mayor, the new PM, the ex-mayor, I think you might have some leverage there. So I'm hoping that that will help you get money in order to help you deliver what we need in North Yorkshire and York. Second point I'd like to make is there was a lot of work done in the Harrogate area to do with a proposed relief road, 2017, 2018, 2019. There were two massive reports written because the council rejected the relief road and said we want to know about other options. And the second report, lots of other options in, would be very valuable to your officers. Because in particular, some of them can be applied right across the more urban areas of North Yorkshire, but equally there's stuff there about park and ride for Harrogate and those type of things that were looked at the time. So I would recommend that report to you. I can ask Will to drop you the link because it's still on the North Yorkshire website. And then I suppose my actual ask is I would like to see a train halt or a train station at Claro Road, which is the one I keep going on about in Harrogate. It will be between Harrogate and Starbeck. I believe it would be twice as busy as Haxby. I've done the numbers. I've actually sort of done the number of transports, and probably the fourth busiest on the. It would be as busy as the Hornbeam Park, which is very successful. So it was as busy as Hornbeam Park. The questions you'll get back already just talked about the challenges in Sherburn and Helmet, and I think this is probably quite helpful for you. So far on Clara Road, I've had a number of different what I would call pushbacks. One was it's on a slope, we couldn't put trains there. However, it's on the line, and in actual fact, in 2005, Network Rail actually put the pedestals there in order to put a station there. So I don't know what's moved since 2005. So that was one impediment that they came up with. Another one was the trains can't set off again. So, and these are all what I would call not quite credible comment. The one that possibly is credible is the fact is that the timetable is harsh. But if you take this together with my other ask for you is that Starbeck Crossing, which is currently down, can be down up to 28 minutes in any 1 hour, depending on what the coordination of the trains. Certainly 14 minutes in an hour. If Network Rail were to put the right technology in there, then that could be reduced to 2 minutes at every time that there's a train crossing. So that would actually give them more time back to be able to enable that, to enable a train halt at Clara Road. So, so hopefully that will help you with my request and any other requests around the table to do with additional train halts.
I'll follow this up with my team. My understanding that there was some updated technology coming on.
Well, I'm hoping it is. Well, it's not confirmed.
Okay.
But if it is, then that's great.
That's going to say I'll find that because that was because
that'd be a big. That'd be big.
I mean, having gone over that crossing 25 million times in my life, I know full well that crossing. I was under the impression there was some technology coming forward, but let me follow that up on there. In terms of transport funding, yeah, you are dead right. Not just York and North Yorkshire local previously, but now as a CA as well, we're one of the worst funded in terms of transport. It's borne out the fact we weren't a city region, Liverpool, West Yorkshire, and we also weren't a state area, so we kind of fell in this grey area. I think our transport funding compared to Mayor Houghton, for example, is something like 1/10 of what he gets, as an example. So it's something that it was pretty much my top ask. Our transport funding and flexibility within it, because again, with all funding, we have quite limitations and flexibility. So, for example, services with our funding, I would class rail as a bit, but I would. So there are limitations, so we are always pressing that case for that. Hopefully, as we become an established status, maybe months, that'll obviously have an impact on that as well. flexibility within the funding we get. Again, a large amount of funding we get is capital, not revenue. We build the station, whatever, but we can't fund the buses. So, and do well as bus getting on to run services now for me is very challenging, and it's why not only do we need more funding to change the whole main. It's hard for us to go down a full franchise model because we need to change the structure, because at the minute we are putting plasters on a bullet wound at the minute. Leaf Road Park and Ride information that we've been raising with leaders in North Yorkshire previously, and they were, I wouldn't say the most supportive about the park and ride. They basically said they've seen before and it was too expensive. But if we present that back to us, then we can see, because I have slightly different priorities around transport than only being able to get anywhere if I can get there in a car. Clare Road Station, has there ever been like any kind of business case for development done on it? Because not that I don't believe your information, but obviously we need to be worked up.
So I believe, well, I know I've sent it a number of times to people that now work for you, but previously worked for North Yorkshire train side. I'm happy to send it again, but I actually use my contacts in Transport for the North to get me some of the data so I could actually present a case. It needs to be updated, and of course, if it comes from one of your officers, it will carry a lot more weight than from myself. So, but yes, the business case should. I think a business case would easily pass the business case, provided it needs one of your team to put it together, provide data and support, as would Transport for the North, I'm sure.
Well, as the chair of Transport for the North, I'm sure.
Exactly. Well, I'm chair of Scrutiny of Transport for the North, so I keep an eye on what you get to see.
Okay. Yeah, let me tell you, and again, yeah, just on that technology, let me take that away, because I was under the impression that something was. So let me take that away and find out. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just add the final comment is that the biggest single issue with public transport is trust. We'll have to be able to trust it. And if they don't trust it to get them need to go, they won't use it.
Yeah, of the consultations and work that we've done with stakeholders, with the public, the number one thing that comes all the time, that reliability bit. It's not cost. It's a lot of our communities know they're not going to get 10 buses an hour. If you live in the middle of nowhere, they need to know that if that bus is coming at 9 or 10, whatever it is, it's going to come. Because that's how so many of our particular poor communities, and when I say communities, can almost run their entire day by that one bus coming at 10 o'clock. And so it is that is reliability bit, which actually in our region is pretty good. Actually, we just need to now increase the frequency of it as well, particularly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for our mayor, please? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Could just pick up from the earlier discussion about the bus enhanced partnerships, because there does seem to be a very constrained timetable, which is very much a construct of the DFT. And I think it would benefit everyone to have a breathing space to come forward with more detailed proposals. We had a very long discussion, have a look online. But I think just thinking about it, it's an artificial constriction on time, and therefore if you were able to speak to DFT and say, in order that this is got right, because buses are such an important facet, and if we rush to something that starts to deteriorate rather than draw together, it would benefit from there being more time to be able to do that, and therefore there would be a better outcome.
Yeah, let me take any of the timeframes where I know a couple from DFT are in stone, and there's no movement on a few of the things we've done. So I can take that away and see if there's any movement we can have. But I'm quite keen to obviously get it done speedily, so we can actually crack on and see the improvements that we all need. I'm not one for spending a lot of time and just developing a plan for plan's sake. We actually need to deliver in action. So I think it's a balance, but we just need to crack on, I think.
Any other questions? In which case, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and for coming today. And I'd like to formally close the meeting. Thank you very much.